Hi everyone and welcome to this episode of The Glass Girls. I'm Nat.
And I'm Lauren, and today we have Bradley Bazant, who is our facilities manager here at Regency, and Les Lang, who is our property advisor at Regency Glass.
So, hi guys, how are we?
Hi, good.
Thank you for joining us today, appreciate it. So I think we'll probably just start a little bit with our backgrounds and how you kind of both got to where you've got to today. So Brad, did you want to go over your kind of path to Regency?
Yeah, so I've been at Regency for 9 years. It's the first job I ever had after coming out of university in Houston, Texas. And I started on the shop floor glass cutting and then worked my way up to facilities manager.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm quite old, so I've been involved in property for about 40 years. I got involved with Regency really when they first started thinking about moving from their old premises into this new premises, helping them find the land and bringing forward the proposals to make this place what it is today.
That's a good place to start, to be honest. Let's discuss how all that came about and then how obviously we ended up moving from where we used to be and then finding this building first of all, and then how we renovated this building, because I think that's also a great story when you actually hear about how we took it from what it was to what it is today. So I don't know if you both wanted to go over that and how all that came about.
Yeah, so Les worked closely with Darren Bazant, founder of Regency Glass, my father, and he's a good family friend and also someone that we've worked with outside of Regency. He has advised Regency for a long time now, and helped navigate a difficult sector of the business, which is something that you always want to make sure you could deliver on, being space, being able to expand so that you can meet the needs of your customers that are ever growing and expanding. So Les was brought in to help us identify a building after 12, 18 months of
Probably longer. It was a tough task really, because what Regency wanted is somewhere that could become very special, but wanted to stay close to its roots and close to its workforce in Leigh. And at the time, I think there'd been a perception generally in the market in Leigh and in the council that actually there was no real demand here, that the demand was close to the motorway and so on. And as a result of that, most industrial premises had sort of been turned over to housing sites. And in fact, this site became very close to being fully developed as housing. It's got new housing nearby. And our time was just really fortunate. We managed to phone up just as the day that a housing developer said they only wanted half the site. And we were able to purchase this building. And it was something to behold at the time. I mean, it was a building that was built in the 50s. That had been empty for a long time and then was full of car breakers, car shunters, a lot of interesting businesses, holes in the roof.
It was a melting pot.
It was dirty, grimy, and I was just really grateful that Regency had the vision to see that we could make it into something that was very special.
Yeah, so it wasn't just something that we basically turned up to and we're in the next day. Definitely not.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Like you've both just said then, it's that vision, isn't it, to be able to see what the potential it had and what it could become. And I think you've touched on a few key points there where obviously it was close to where all the staff are from, where the company originated, and it's a very short list of places where we could have actually gone. So from there now, so going over that renovation, let's just discuss that a little bit. So that from start to finish, how long did that take?
So I think we purchased the property in December 2017.
Yep.
And then it was a mad dash then to basically, because as Les mentioned to earlier, it needed so much work doing. So it was getting that team of professionals together around the table, getting the ideas together on paper first, and then
I mean, you'd never believe, looking at the building now, what it was.
Yeah.
Because most people who aren't property professionals, when they come into this building, think it's a new building, and it's not. And in order to do that, we had to be really inventive in terms of how we dealt with things. Obviously, it's a more cost-effective solution to work with as much of the building that's already there, but some of it was beyond repair. But, it's highly unusual for people to take an old building, clad it inside and out, which is one of the things that we did here. Completely redecorated it. We had to actually, the floor was so uneven, cracked slab and all the rest of it, that we had to sort of plane it down, which was an interesting process. It doesn't happen very often that you actually take it down probably about 1/2 inch to actually create a flat surface. Obviously for glass you need a very flat
it's important,
surface.
isn't it?
So that was, a complete rewire. It had certain benefits here, which is obviously it had craneage and a gantry. Obviously we had to put new cranes in, but the gantry was very valuable. And it's a great credit to what we've done here. The other thing I'd mention as well is people talk about sustainability a lot and carbon neutral buildings and so on. This building's got an EPC-A, which is a huge achievement. But when people talk about, some of the new buildings are carbon neutral, and that might well be true. But in terms of the carbon that's been involved in creating this, to have done a new build, even if it was carbon neutral, it would have taken 20 years before you've actually made the difference in terms of all the embodied carbon that goes in doing a new build. So it's a huge credit to this company that it's in such high quality premises without actually having a huge carbon footprint.
One of the key points of this now is the experience that Les brings to the table, and the experience obviously from the contractors and bringing all those on board. So how did all that look? Did you have much experience in this, Brad, or was this something you'd done before?
Yeah, so when the original project happened, we got around the table, we were helping Les because I'd worked briefly with Les on different things outside of Regency. So I knew a little bit of how Les worked and his team worked. And it was basically then, how could we fit in, how could Regency Glass make it as efficient as possible moving forward? We quickly realised that the ambitious targets that we'd set ourselves when we put machine orders in place and things like that, and different targets that we wanted the business to achieve because we needed to get into a bigger factory, we'd set ourselves very, very ambitious deadlines of getting machinery in by the 12-month period of when we'd actually bought the building. So we bought it in December 2017. It was our goal to have working machinery in December 2018.
From buying the building to manufacturing your first IGU, what was that time frame?
Roughly 12 months. So we
Impressive.
had architects in, all those kind of things. Like Les said, there was some parts, and the building wasn't
complete.
It wasn't just a facelift, was it? It wasn't just a facelift. So
I think we definitely have to show some pictures in this, aren't we, just to give the viewers an idea of exactly what it used to look like and what it currently looks like.
There was a massive shift in terms of how the building actually finished looking, but there was also Regency Glass needed the space. We'd outgrown our 2 previous facilities, and we needed the space to be able to overflow into here. Mm-hmm. We'd picked different customers up that were ready for growing with us, and we needed to make sure that we matched our ambition. So one of the big parts for us was getting in here in that time, and it was all about just jumping on and getting hands on deck. So when we started in the early days, it quickly became apparent that we weren't going to have the time to go through all the paperwork that you'd normally do and get it all.
There's a normal way of procuring a project like this, which is you do all the drawings, you plan it all out, and then you let the contract. And Regency needed to work to a timescale to be producing glass within the building. That meant that was not going to be possible. And that's where we had to have a team, including the contractor, who's going to be very flexible and also be inventive in terms of the way in which we're procuring the work. So we were doing work while some elements were still being designed. And also when I talk about the design, that's the building design, but also there's this design still ongoing about how the office is going to work, exactly how many staff you're going to have. And that's one of the reasons why it worked exceedingly well, that Brad ended up almost being like a project manager on site while we were doing other stuff in terms of procuring the work. And actually, there's a number of things that we changed during the process, but actually we've ended up with something really special here.
Is there anything before you started planning everything on site? Is there anything that you wish you would have known back then that you know now to have made things a bit easier? Or are you quite happy with how the journey unfolded?
I am happy with how the journey unfolded. There are a few little surprises, like I can't remember if it's a big underground sewer, like an 8-foot diameter underground sewer, which we knew was here, but it wasn't where it was supposed to be. That was a little bit of a surprise, but actually one that we managed to deal with. But that was a surprise. And the other one was, this used to be a BICC steel cable factory, so I'm not sure what they made the slab of, but when we were trying to cut some drainage channels, yeah, that was quite interesting. What should have been like a 2-day job was like a 3-week job, and a lot of swearing.
When you get something from the 1950s, you've not got many drawings, you've not got many updated drawings, so it was like we're working through drainage drawings that have been handwritten on a piece of paper and trying to figure out whether they matched what was actually under the ground. And as Les alluded to, then it wasn't a 2-minute process to see what was under the ground. It was a 2-3 day process of what would have been a half-a-day dig. So the building, but in the same sense, as much as that's frustrating, it's also it's very reassuring to read into glasses. We're in a building here that's going nowhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we've made it into this little jewel for ourselves. We've reused a building that otherwise would have been dragged down and built houses upon. Because obviously one of the big things that we've got is we want to support all of our staff in terms of them getting their houses and the new build sector, which is one that we work very closely with some of our customers. But it's still, we need industrial units in Britain to be able to pay for these houses and keep the economy ticking. So from our perspective, it was a perfect match of reusing a building, but also moving forward into the future.
Obviously, I know there was quite a few challenges in the project that you overcome, and it looks like you both enjoyed the challenge from your facial expressions, from what I can tell. Might be exaggerating that a bit. What would you say, for both of you, what would you say is the most satisfying part of your jobs?
I think at the time when we had the group of lads on site, and I'd moved from glass cutting to being on site helping out on the project at this end, the most satisfying part was just seeing the rapid changes and seeing that we were getting somewhere, in the vision that we'd all sat around the table and discussed was coming to life, and it wasn't this problem that we were going to have. It was looking like we expected it to, and that vision was coming to life. So that was the most satisfying part at that point. I think now is working with staff, valued staff members, and being able to look after our staff in return in the investment that we've done in this factory, so we can make sure that our customers are being let down. We've got backup machinery all over the factory where we need it. And it's a very stress-free environment for our staff. We're hardly doing any all the time, because breakdowns we can keep on top of. Engineers can look after all the equipment that we've got. So I think that's the most satisfying part of the job now, is that we've got a facility here that creates a real work-life balance for our staff. And
what about you now, Les? What would you say is satisfying about your job or your career?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've done a lot of new build projects and they've been incredibly satisfying. But what I really find most satisfying is when you can create something special from something that already exists. Yeah. Because actually reusing things, but still creating something really special, is, I find, incredibly satisfying. And I also feel like I'm doing the right thing for the planet. But also, if I'm able to do that and create a really good platform for other people to run their businesses, that's what gives me the greatest satisfaction.
I've already asked you a hindsight question, but is there anything in particular that you wish you'd have known in the past, for example 10 years ago, that would have helped you now in the present?
We would have definitely liked to know that COVID was right around the corner before we moved in. This building very much may have saved Regency Glass in terms of the space that it gave us to be able to socially distance, to be able to make sure our manufacturing process was compliant and we could stay open and we could keep operating and keep serving customers.
Yeah.
We may not have been so lucky in the previous two facilities, but it would have just been nice to know that there was a deadline looming after the deadline that we'd set ourselves. So it was eventful, but it was also a learning curve for the business, and I think as it was for everyone in the country.
I know we've already said that where we've moved is very close to where we were before, but how far is this building actually to where our old building was?
It's about a mile as a crow flies.
Yeah.
So you could go out of the back exit, but there's a bollards on the road that actually gets you through the road. So you have to go round Leeds, so it's about a 5-10 minute drive.
And when you're that close, when you're that close, you might be a mile further for some people, but you're a mile closer for lots of other people. Whereas once you move out of a town, you're further for everyone.
Yeah, and it sounds cliche, but it sounds like it was meant to be.
Yeah, I think it was a building that my dad and Les had been looking at for 10 years. Like you mentioned, they've made many calls about this and thought that it was gone. And then at the last minute.
I don't think it was meant to be. I think it's a testament to persistence, right? Because you ask somebody whether you can buy a building off them, and they say no. You ask them 2 or 3 times more, and they still say no. And then you give it just one last try because we've been offered something which was out of the town. Yeah. And somebody said yes. I don't think that's something that's supposed to be. I think it's like a huge value of persistence.
Yeah.
So who would you say is the biggest influence, Les, on you and your work?
I try and learn all the time, and one of the problems I think with a lot of industries, and this is particularly true of the property industry, is too many property people just spend their time with property people. And I'm not going to pick out an individual person. What I'm going to say is that I try and learn off the people I'm doing buildings for. I want to learn how they run their businesses, how they organise their businesses, because I think I can learn a lot from those experiences.
Would you say there's a common theme between, obviously every industry is different, but is there any common theme that you would say runs between them all from your clients?
I think that the best businesses have good business cultures. That doesn't mean they have the same culture. Different businesses have different cultures that can be successful. And for me, one of the huge things is, obviously that's about how you organise your staff, how you do training, how you invest in machinery and all the rest of it. But the property you're in has to give you the right platform to do that. You can't just drop a culture into any particular kind of building or kind of environment.
Would you say that you've seen a difference since Regency's moved to this building, Brad?
Yeah, I think definitely in terms of getting our culture. Our culture's always been very good. We've been very lucky in terms of being a local business. A lot of people who share the same ideology. People respect each other. They want to work for each other. They want to make people's lives easier. They want to make the next person down the line and the person before them, they want to make it as easy as possible for each other. And that filtered into after working before. But when you come into a place like this, it just elevates where people feel like they should be working, how people feel like they should be treated, how people get treated, and basically the product of people's work just elevates because it's a better place to work. And when they walk into this factory compared to our previous, it almost makes you want to do that bit better. And that's what we've found more than anything, I think, is the facility, like Les said, is a platform for what you can do for yourself, and it challenges us as management to make sure that we're doing the best we can for our staff, and it also challenges our staff to deliver for management in the best way that they can.
Looking from the outside, the previous facility had got tired and it was cramped, and it's very difficult to instill a drive for excellence if people aren't working in an excellent environment.
No, that's a great point, Les. It's a great point. And just throwing the question back at you, Brad, who influences you in your work? And
I think I'd probably say my family, just because I work so close with so many of them. Obviously there's yourself, my sister, and then my father, director here, and then loads of close family friends and family as well, cousins, uncles, all that kind of full family feel. So I do work for them and want to do the best possible for those firstly, but then also the 125 staff and those people who've got mortgages at home and they rely on this job and this company to make that happen. So I'd probably say anyone within the Regency family, because there's days where you can have someone who walks in and they just inspire you by something they're doing. Like, let's say it's something that you don't want to just have one or two people. You want to have a larger group so that you're not just tunnel vision to, oh, I'm just going to copy this one person, because that's never good for anyone. I don't feel like it should be a blend of ideas, shouldn't it? It's not healthy to just be narrow-minded to one thing. So yeah, I'd say a large group, but there's people with it that the impact boards.
So guys, we always finish the podcast with the same question. We have a slogan here at Regency Glass, which is "The difference is clear." So in your own words, an experience of dealing with Regency, what would you say the difference is?
For me, there's two things. One is strive for excellence, and that's, I'm not going to point to one thing, that's sort of in every facet. And the second one is integrity. I can see that they have that quality with their staff, but they've also had it with me and everybody I've brought to the table.
I think the difference is forward thinking, so we're constantly looking for that next thing that we can do to improve the business, whether it be internally, whether it be externally outside of these four walls, whether it can be a piece of machinery, whether it can be something we can offer staff. We constantly want to look at what can we do to make Regency Glass better, and in turn with that, a bit like what Les has touched on there, we want to make sure we treat others like we treat ourselves.
Lovely. Well, you know what? It's been an absolute pleasure having you both on the podcast. So thank you very much for coming down today, Les.
No, thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Lovely.
No, we appreciate it. Thank you for your time, both of you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Glass Girls podcast. Whether you are watching or listening, keep an eye on our socials for all future episodes, and we will see you again soon.
See you soon.